Welcome back to the channel, and today we're talking Transformers, and we're talking World War II. Now Michael Bay and Transformers The Last Knight had us believing that Transformers were around in wartime. Not just that, he also had us believing that this clock killed Hitler. Yeah, right. Anyway, Travis Knight stepped in, picked up the franchise with the 1980s Bumblebee movie and course corrected the action, and it now appears that the World War aspect of Transformers is no more. However, did Paramount and Hasbro have more plans to feature Transformers in wartime? It appears so, because coming out of the writer's room, which was set up with Transformers The Last Knight, it does seem that a World War II Transformers film was on the cards, because concept art has now been released by ArtStation and concept artist JP Target, who I will link in the description box below, and we're going to check that out today in this video. But before we get into it, I want to make sure you are subscribed to the channel with the notification bell turned on so you stay up to date with all my Transformers content. Now the writer's room, the Transformers writer's room, has always interested me. It's a bit of a mystery because there was so much talk about mapping out the future of the Transformers live action universe at the time of Transformers The Last Knight. There was even talk about they had 20 story arcs planned to take the franchise forward. But none of that actually came off, and all we ended up getting was a compacted Transformers The Last Knight movie which jumped in timeline constantly. So, you know, 1 minute we're in medieval time, next minute we're in wartime, and it really felt, in all honesty, a mess. So what I'm thinking now is, if they did have plans for a standalone movie in each of these time periods, why didn't they go there first and maybe build towards the secret history of Transformers? That would make more sense for a writer's room to have been put in place to map out those films to build to that. Well, let's actually read the extract from JP Target, who was involved in the writer's room, and this is great because I really have wanted for some time some insight into this writer's room, and now we're getting it. So this is what JP Target had to say. A few years back, me and a few other concept artists were invited by Paramount to participate in the Transformers writers' room. We were there to help the writers visualize their unique Transformers movies. The results were exciting and fresh and gave a new take on the Transformers mythology. Certainly did that. The images you are seeing are a result of one of the Transformers movies that was presented to Paramount and Steven Spielberg. The images can be seen on the special features of the Transformers The Last Knight Blu-ray. I was honoured to be a part of this. So, you can actually check these out on the special features of Transformers The Last Knight on the Blu-ray disc, but haven't seen too many actually cover this on YouTube. So, let's check out this concept art that JP Target put together, and let's weigh up if it might have been more feasible to have gone with a World War II Transformers film first as opposed to Transformers The Last Knight, and would this have been something you would have been interested in? Let me know in the comments below. So let's get into it. Let's take a look at the first concept art, and it's a poster for this World War II Transformers movie entitled Transformers Operation Skyfire. And it actually says, in the shadows of World War II, a battle for the future of our planet and theirs. So that is the premises of this movie, and it very much sounds like what we got with Transformers The Last Knight. Is it any different? Because the Autobots and the Decepticons were on Earth and the battle commenced. It was about our planet, but it was also about restoring Cybertron. So not much different, even though it would have been set many years ago. And we see this poster and we have an Autobot, I'm presuming that, and I imagine this is Skyfire, if anything, and it looks a bit like Lockdown, if I'm honest. That head sculpt that we've got does remind me of Lockdown, green eyes too, so if it was an Autobot and we had continuity, it would have been nice maybe to, you know, again, I've talked about this before with eye colour when it comes to the live action universe, maybe have the Autobots with blue eyes to represent that, and then have the Decepticons with red. If you have the Constructicons, then you could have green eyes, but the continuity seems to fall away quite a lot in the Transformers live action universe. So anyway, let's continue to analyse the poster. And we have this Autobot, and perched upon his shoulder looks like a young Sam Witwicky. Right. Now that can't be possible. I mean, yes, the Transformers were around in wartime, but don't try and tell me that Sam Witwicky was. I mean, that's ridiculous. But if we do get a good look at that face, that is Shia LaBeouf. So I don't know, I think that the concept artists have just used that as an example. But if we were gonna go down a story route where Sam Witwicky was able to be around in wartime, I'd tell you that's ridiculous. But nevertheless, very strange. But it does make me think then this is an Autobot if it has got a friendly looking character perched on his shoulder. But anyway, is what it is. We see an eagle on the jet of this Skyfire Autobot. But something else that's caught my eye is take a look at the head sculpt, then begin to pan down. Now, don't go too far. We're not going too far, but go down past the joystick. Yes, look, don't go there, but keep going down. You see those controls that you see on the chest? That would have been part of his jet mode. And then look at that midsection of this Autobot. And does that not look like another face in that midsection? And maybe this Autobot has almost like a split personality, because I can see a secondary face there. So we have the head sculpt, then we have in the midsection another face-like look, which to me then kind of makes me think, can this Autobot back in those times change it up that he has two alt modes in robot form? So can anyone else see that, or am I just seeing things? Definitely in the midsection, it looks like to me that there is another face there, and that would mean that this can transform and have two robot modes and maybe two sort of faces to it. But very different, but it is something that caught my eye, so I wanted to put it out there for you guys to comment upon. And so let's pan down a little bit further, and not on the Autobot, you dirty buggers. Okay, not down there. We're going down to the lower regions of the poster, and the poster only, because we see a Decepticon. We can see the markings on his wings of his jet, and he's opening fire on the soldiers, and they are on the retreat. So the war continues. So it's a very interesting poster. I think that in terms of the war scenario, it's quite an interesting time to set a Transformers film, because of course we have the war on Cybertron, so it's nothing really that's out the norm for a Transformers film, for them to be in the heat of the battle. But in terms of the actual story of what we're looking at here, and reading that initial line that we've got in the shadows of World War II, a battle for the future of our planet and theirs, it just basically tells me that it's going to sound much like what we got in Transformers The Last Knight. But maybe it would have been better to actually set off this whole historic secret history of Transformers with a movie like this, and then move to a different time period and take the franchise forward with there, as opposed to doing what they did and condense it all and compact it into Transformers The Last Knight. So let me know what you think, and let's move on and let's look at the second image in this concept art. Well, this looks like, once again, and I'm going to call him Skyfire. I don't know if he is actually called Skyfire or not, but I'm going to presume it's him because it's the same Autobot which we saw on the poster, and we can tell that because the head sculpt is the same, but also if you look on the actual jet, you see an eagle, and that eagle was on the poster of the Autobot 2, and it appears that soldiers are trying to help Skyfire, who has apparently either crash landed, whether or not that's coming down from Cybertron, or he's been shot down in war, in battle. So the soldiers are trying to help him at this stage, but I'd love to hear your take on what you think about this concept art, particularly this image. What do you think has happened? You see in the background the gunships firing, so this is mid-war. So not a good predicament for Skyfire to be in, crash landing, and he's trying to be untangled, helped out, and not in good shape at all. But let me know in the comment section below what you think is happening in this shot. And let's move on and take a look at some more of this concept art. And this time we're not looking at the Autobot or Skyfire. We're now looking at the Decepticons, and a Decepticon leading the German army into war. Now, I'm not entirely sure I really like the whole idea of the Decepticons working with the humans. I haven't been that keen on that in the future Transformers films that we had with Michael Bay, and it would only imply even more so that they are in cahoots with certain humans, and I just don't think the Decepticons are that much invested in the humans. Yes, to deceive them, but not to work with them. No. The Decepticons would want them working for them, and this doesn't look like that. In fact, it looks like the Decepticons are lending a helping hand to the German army, and behind we've got another ginormous Decepticon, and it looks like he is carrying in more reinforcement, more of the German army. And that head sculpt of that larger Transformer, that larger Decepticon, looks to me a lot like Megatron. Now, again, like I mentioned with the poster, surely Megatron can't be in this movie, a bit like Shia LaBeouf can't. It just doesn't tie in with any of the history that's been mapped out from the Michael Bay franchise, and this is coming out of the writer's room, so surely they must have thought about some continuity, surely. But that's what it looks like to me. It's just concept art after all, so you know, they could have just been taking the form of Megatron just to represent what it could look like. And ultimately this concept art, we know what we've seen from Bumblebee the movie, it does change as it approaches, you know, production for the movie. So I'm just putting out there what I'm taking in on each shot, and the Decepticon that we see that's with the army doesn't look like it's the one we saw in the poster. It's got similarities to it, but it has different markings. So again, what do you take from this? Let me know in the comments section. I take from this that the Autobots and the Decepticons have picked sides and who they have aligned with, but I'm not entirely sure. The more we go towards that whole alliance aspect, with particularly the Decepticons, we know that the Autobots will be looking out for the humans' best interest, but this then means that you've got the Autobots killing humans. I don't know, it just kind of muddies the waters, all of this. I think it maybe ventures a little bit too far into the Decepticons and the Autobots picking sides and then just raging a huge war on Earth and plenty of human casualties. I'd be looking at it more that the Autobots would always be trying to prevent casualties with the humans, and the Decepticons be willing to kill any human whether or not you're the German army, the British army, or the American army. It doesn't matter to them because they are the great deceivers, and ultimately they just think the humans are nothing. So let's take a look at the final piece of Transformers concept art for this Operation Skyfire movie, which never made it to production, and we see a plane coming under fire from a Decepticon who looks a lot like that initial Decepticon we saw in the bottom half of the Operation Skyfire poster. He's got the same markings on him, and interestingly enough, you see on the back of the jackets of the soldiers or the pilots here, you see Skyfire on the back of the jacket. So maybe not in the poster, the Transformer which we see, maybe that's not called Skyfire unless the humans have given him that name as part of the operation. So I'm not entirely sure. I mean, we have to all make our own assumptions on this, but this Decepticon not afraid to open fire and get into battle, and you see it is a huge battle sequence going on in the skies, something I'd be very interested and actually excited to see in a Transformers film, seeing an air battle commence. We always saw in the initial first 2007 Michael Bay Transformers film Starscream in mid-air transforming in and out of jet to robot mode and taking swipes at pilots as they move their jets in the air. I love that sequence. I'd like to see a lot more of that in Transformers films, seeing jet chases as opposed to just, you know, car and vehicle chases. So hopefully that's something that's planned for the future, even if it was just planned in the past with this Operation Skyfire movie. So this is quite a cool shot, and this would be a big battle sequence, maybe one of the final battle sequences, and you see the Decepticons on the attack, if you will. But that is everything that we've seen, and I want to get your views and opinions in the comments section below. What do you think of this concept art? There's quite a lot of confusing aspects about it. Like I said, you've got the Shia LaBeouf look. He can't go back in time. He just can't. It doesn't work. Please don't tell me he can do that. It seems madness. It has to just be the fact they used a face to kind of, you know, put it out there as an idea. But also you see here, you've got to think, well, you know, this might have been a better idea, to be honest with you, going with this over what we got with Transformers The Last Night. It would tell a story for a certain period of time, and that's why Bumblebee the movie was so successful, because it did home in on a period of time, the 1980s, and focused on specific Transformers. This would do the same by the looks of it. Yes, there are Decepticons involved. Yes, it does look like a bigger movie because there's a lot to go on in World War times, but it does look like the main focus would be on a Transformer as part of this Skyfire team, and that Transformer maybe being Skyfire, who is the lead Autobot for the movie. So not really too much different to what you would have got with Bumblebee, apart from the time that it's set in, and also the fact as well it would be a slightly bigger movie, more explosions, that's for sure. So anyway, I want to get your views and opinions on this. I'd love to actually hear what you think this story would have been about. How would you have mapped this out? And if you actually did start with this wartime movie, how would you have progressed towards Transformers The Last Night to make that movie a bit more than what it was, which I feel was a mess? Because what I think actually came in the end from the writer's room, and I will close on this, is this story was put into Transformers The Last Night. A medieval story was put into Transformers The Last Night, and they just compacted it all down, squished and squashed it down into this condensed movie, and it just didn't tell any true story. It just made up a lot of things, and a lot of things didn't make sense, and then they just classed it as the secret history of Transformers. If the writer's room had been utilised maybe to tell individual Transformers films one at a time, maybe it would have made a lot more sense, and maybe we give Michael Bay and the writer's room a lot more credit, because ultimately that's how Bumblebee was put together. Focused on a Transformer, built in a period of time, And it worked. So anyway, get involved in the comment section below. I found this very interesting. Again, I have linked in the description so you can check out the concept art more on the official site that this has come from. But all that's left to be said is please rate, comment and subscribe. And what would you prefer? Did you prefer getting Bumblebee, or would you prefer this? A Transformers Operation Skyfire movie. This is Delzinski signing out.